Good evening. Welcome to Love Talk. My name is Gregory Morgan. It is my pleasure, my honor, to have with me today a guest who is, his name is Daniel Kempling, and he is the founder of Mindful Movement Trainings. And Mindful Movement Trainings has its basis in a discipline that I studied for many years and practiced for many years. I have a black belt in Aikido, which is a Japanese martial art, and it is intertwined with and certainly influenced by the sword movements from Japanese samurai swords. So Daniel Sensei, Sensei means respected teacher. Daniel Sensei, who is a 5th degree black belt in Aikido, in Los Angeles visiting with me, he will be teaching a part of the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery workshop that I'll be giving this weekend. So many of you have heard me speak about the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery workshop in Los Angeles, and it is for men only. I want to keep on track about my introduction to Daniel Sensei. So his name is Daniel Kempling. I want to show you a bit of a reel so that you can get a sense of Aikido, swordsmanship, and Daniel is also a teacher of Pilates movements, which is all about correcting posture and core strength. So all of these things come together in mindful movement, are taught as a way of getting to know yourself from the inside out. Many of you who have watched my show and who know me from my other teaching know that I speak of a human being as being both physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And most of the aspects of who you truly are as a human being are not physical. They can't be seen with the naked eye. And yet, like the wind, even though we can't see it, we see its effects in the real world. And so who you're being, when somebody is pointing to you, and they're referring to you, or when you refer to yourself, often we think of the physical person, but in truth, what we're really speaking about is that essence, that spiritual, emotional, and mental essence that has come together and is intertwined, and it's speaking through this physical body, speaking through this physical presence. So ultimately, who you are, who I am, is really a spiritual being having a physical experience. And so we use movement, we use the experience of one's core self as an access to experiencing who we really are and what our purpose is in life and what is possible for human beings. And I bring this to you today as a way of also having you look at whatever issues you have in your own relationships, in your own physical challenges or confrontations, and any kind of like challenges that we have in our relationships. You know, if you're a human being and you have relationships, you're going to have challenges in those relationships. They come with. And I believe that challenges that we face in our relationships is so that we grow and become stronger in our core and find out more and more about who we truly are and what our real essence is. I want to go ahead and introduce you to Daniel Kempling Sensei by showing you this little short clip.
The exercises that you've just seen are not a comprehensive fitness regime, but rather serve as a foundation to forge your body as a vessel for the spirit's yearning. As you begin to retrain your muscular skeletal system to more effectively align with gravity, you'll soon begin to notice your tendency to slouch, your poor lifting habits, and the diminished image that you project through a contracted walking posture. One of the greatest gifts that a conscious approach to exercise offers is the deepened sense of mindfulness that naturally arises when we pay attention to the feedback of those muscle groups awakened and stimulated by recent exercise. For so many of us, our exercise regime is a mechanical process, something we endure like bitter medicine. This no pain, no gain approach to fitness may, for a while, give you a pleasing body shape, but it does nothing to cultivate our appreciation of the gifts that surround and contain us. Just as an athlete daily trains to better his skills, so we must give ourselves to the continual improvement in quality of our performance of daily tasks. I call this approach the Olympics of life, and it's a little game I play with myself to encourage quality in every task before me. I imagine that there's a panel of judges grading me on my performance in the seemingly mundane tasks that make up much of our day. These imaginary judges score me on the fullness of my breath, the quality of my core contraction, and the sense of care I impart to the completion of the job as I transition to the next event. It is the decathlon of life. As you develop this habit of meeting the world through your five senses, you'll often catch yourself leaving the here and now, falling prey to anxiety and anxiety's inevitable companions, tension in the upper torso and jaw, contraction of posture, and shallowness of breath. Noting these moments without indulging in self-criticism is an essential step to deeper self-awareness. For the heart of any meditative discipline is in returning to the here and now. One effective method of sinking back into the moment is to first of all take a deep breath, pushing the out-breath longer than is normal. If you're in motion, give specific attention to your core muscles and the quality of contact your feet have with the earth. If seated, roll your pelvis forward to flatten the lower back and push the crown of your head towards the ceiling. This creates a dynamic tension along the length of your spine whilst opening the chest to a fuller, more calming breath. And we can do so much for our mindfulness training by applying heavy lifting protocols to our every movement. Most of us who have grown up in developed countries have never established the habit of deep squatting. Yet when we fail to use the largest and strongest muscles in our body as they were designed, we inevitably overuse our relatively tiny lumbar extensors. It's no wonder that low back strain is the most common orthopedic injury in our society. No matter the weight of your load, treat it as though it were dangerously heavy. Drop your center of gravity to the object, contract your core inward, and exhale upward. Ensure that you keep your shoulders down and back, and especially keep your load within the frame of your hips as you turn. This type of vigilance in movement is one of the greatest gifts to be drawn from martial arts practice. On the mats, lapses in attention can quickly result in serious injury. And so, over time, the martial arts adept develops an endurance of concentration that reveals and reinforces her spirit's innate yearning to live fully in the moment. It's logical then that the samurai embraced Zen meditation. The physical settling of tension that results from sincere Zen practice is arguably a warrior's greatest asset in combat. The samurai used the term tanren to describe both the forging of a sword as well as one's lifelong commitment to the daily practice of those techniques that unite and purify body, mind, and spirit. Now clearly, not everyone will embrace martial arts as a lifelong practice. The key here is to cultivate a warrior's resolve and awareness in whatever form your training takes. A notable fringe benefit of expanded awareness and erect posture is that you are much less likely to suffer assault when you habitually carry yourself this way. For the two-legged predators in our midst are looking for the easy targets, those who appear dull in their awareness and slack in their posture. For this, and so many other reasons, our approach to exercise must interpenetrate our practice of mindfulness in every task before us.
Helping me in welcoming Daniel Kimpling Sensei. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Gregory. It's a pleasure to be here indeed.
Yeah, that was a pretty good clip. That was the first time I got a chance to see you with the sword. So we've shared that in common, and that is something that I have yet to get to see you to do. So
well, we'll have a chance this weekend.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about what is, and for our audience's sake, you are a 50-degree black belt in Aikido, so you have years and years and hours of practice that I haven't even begun to do. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing your learning here. And I'd like you to share a little bit with me and the audience about What is Aikido? What's the essence of Aikido? And how can we apply Aikido and the essence of the sword movements in our everyday life? Not just in our moving, but in our relationships with other human beings. How do you see that could be applicable?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aikido is first and foremost a martial art.
Yeah.
Right? It's about, on some level, protecting your life and protecting the life of your loved ones. But at the same time, we got to find relevance for it in daily life. And so what I find most useful and penetrating about martial arts practice, and specifically the one that I love, Aikido, brings the sweetness or the importance of every moment really vividly to life. If you have slack attention in martial arts practice, you get hurt. And so what happens in martial arts practice is you have a sense of the weight of life. Not only are you learning on some level to take life if needs be, but through that you gain an appreciation of just how precious and sacred and divine each moment is through the practice. Also, martial arts practice is arduous. It's difficult at times. And it gives us, the good-hearted man, a chance to deepen his skills, if you will, sort of his concentration, give a chance to deepen his endurance for paying attention in daily life. That is probably one of the biggest gifts from martial arts practice. It gives you a vehicle to bring your compassion and your love to the world that's grounded, that's solid, right? Makes you impactful as a human being.
Wow, yes, I can see that. I can also see that it would have you be more confident in your interactions with people, more grounded. So there's an idea that we have in martial arts about being in the eye of the storm, being in the center of a lot of activity going on, you know, and often in martial arts there are multiple attacks. And just because somebody attacks once and you deal with it doesn't mean they won't come back and attack harder again. And so there's something about being calm and centered in the eye of the storm which really translates very well in terms of being in relationships in your family, in which sometimes people can kind of gang up on you, or you might have something going on with your wife and your kids and stuff might be having their own thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is a classic example, Gregory. You come home at the end of the day, you worked hard, all you want is 5-10 minutes of peace to just settle down. Right away, the kids need this, your wife hasn't seen you all day, you got something that needs to get cleaned up, the dog crapped on the floor, you name it. All of a sudden, you're in combat on some level. You're being challenged. And someone without training has a knee-jerk reaction to life. They're thrown around. They're like a cork in the sea in a tempest. They're just tossed hither and yon. Ideally, this type of training, meditative training, martial arts training, gives us a chance to settle into ourselves beautifully with a sense of, by God's good grace, serenity, so that we can actually pick our moments and be fully present with each thing we do. It's the classic thing. You got the cell phone ringing, you know, while you're driving and somebody's cutting you off. You deal with one thing at a time, and yet in our daily life the odds, hopefully, of being in combat are slim. In actual physical combat.
Actual physical combat, it's relatively rare to be physically attacked, at least in the culture that most of the people watching this show would find themselves in. You know, if you're home watching this on satellite TV, then more than likely you've got your life handled to a point that you're not actually worried about, you know, who's going to attack you next. However, I do know that there are women in our audience who have been attacked many times, and sometimes by the people closest to them. Martial arts training and meditative training is the most effective way that I have found in my lifetime, and that's why I wanted to share this aspect of self-development with you, because it has been the underlying core of all of the teachings that I have learned. In other words, what I have found in psychology, what I've found in interactional relationship training has all been referred back to the training that I got through Aikido and Iaido, which is the sword training that you saw Daniel practicing and that he teaches. Without those, I mean, you need to have the ability to know when and how to stay centered and be effective. Any kind of confrontation, whether it be verbal or actually physical, the first thing that seems to happen to us as human beings is that our shoulders go up, our weight goes up. The shape of fear is an inverted triangle. you know, which is top heavy and, you know, pointed at the bottom. So it has a tendency, it's easy to attack and easy to take off balance. A centered person will have the shape of, the energetic shape of a pyramid. They'll be grounded at the bottom and light at the top. And so can you imagine being able to stabilize yourself in the face of oncoming verbal, emotional, or even physical attack? That is not something that you're going to learn outside of some place like a dojo. You're not going to learn that by talking about it. You're only going to learn it by actually interacting on a very physical and real level in some kind of a training. That's why we practice both meditation. You saw the meditation master, and in movement. So you practice both, and the sword practice is a practice that you practice by yourself. It's something that you use where actually the sword is your teacher. The forms that we use, the katas that we use in the Aikido, are really a way of teaching you how to be at peace and yet lightning fast and effective. So let's say some more about that. What can you tell us about Aikido, which is really about the power to actually take life instantly? Yeah, you know, and wielding that power with honor and dignity, and what's the word I'm looking for? Judiciously.
Yeah, judiciously. Yeah, Aikido is to me a beautiful art form.
Yes.
And it is a form developed by the samurai to keep their sword work alive in times of peace. The sword work asks of us to have a certain organization in our body, a certain functional relaxation. But this relaxation isn't relaxation like laying down in a hot tub.
Yeah.
It's a type of relaxation where you need to be very strong in your lower body, and you need to have a great deal of strength in your center, your hara, but you need to be relaxed in every other aspect that isn't working hard. And I think that that's a vivid metaphor for life. We do need to be vigilant in daily life.
Yes.
But at the same time, especially in relationships, we need to be able to open our hearts. We need to be able to open our ears. We need to be present, but at the same time, not guarded in the sense.
Yes.
So what good martial arts practice, and especially Aikido, which is solo work, when you're tense in places that you don't need to be tense, the sword forms, they feel like crap. They just
feel bad.
They just feel bad.
That's my experience too. It's like, and you'll see from the tip of the sword, but when I was practicing by myself, when you're relaxed, the sword, when you've made a cut, even though it's a cut that's so strong it could cut right through a bamboo, when it comes to rest, there's no wavering or shaking at the end of the sword. It doesn't tremble. It's just like putting a hand in a glove, or that feeling of it's soft at the end. That's something that you could practice forever and never perfect, you know? So it's teaching. I would learn about myself by watching the tip of the sword, if it's moving when I finished my cut, if there was tension anywhere in my body, or was it just like, just relaxed and easy, even though it was a lethal blow. It was easy and relaxed and no tension or aggression. That's one of the ways that I was able to begin to purify some of my own aggression that was just kind of naturally there from how I grew up, and you know, sort of a fighting stance, you know, in my house and in my neighborhood. You know, it was like you were ready to fight all the time, and so there was a sort of tension that kind of came with, and it was hardwired into my body, and the Aikido helped me to sort of purify that out. And I'm with you on this, being able to, and only then can you really begin to open your heart.
Right. Well, this is one of the aspects of this type of training. I call it a somatic awareness or understanding, simply meaning you feel it in your bones. You feel it physically when you have excess tension, because you've noticed it through an ongoing regular practice when you have excess tension. And part of it is postural. When you're sitting slouched, it means part of your body is working in a way that it shouldn't in order for you to have proper relationship with gravity. And to do martial arts well, to do sword work well, you need to be aligned so that your spine is neutral. And this is the experience that you have when you start to carry yourself differently. The difference, if you're in a relationship, perhaps your loved one is talking to you, and you find yourself here, it's a whole different experience, whether you feel it or not, to open the heart, put the shoulders back, and move forward into it. And this is what, in a way, martial art asks of it. It asks us to be forthright and clear, hold our ground, but at the same time, be open-hearted. So for me, it's a vivid, felt experience in the body that goes back and forth and one teaches the other. Our relationships teach us more about understanding martial arts, and martial arts training gives us an understanding such that we can feel when we are out in our relationships.
When we're out, not only out of alignment, but off center with ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like how you use that demonstration where literally your core goes off center and back,
Yep.
and then you cross over your heart and listen, and so nothing's going to happen there.
Yep.
Nothing positive is going to have an outcome from that, especially if your spouse or loved one is pouring their heart out to you, and sometimes the highest expression of love that they can come up with is screaming and yelling at you. If you can stay present to that, if you can open into that, and like you said, move towards that with an open heart. It is also one of the key elements in Aikido is to not move away from, but towards the attacker.
Right.
You know, not to move away from, you move away from a sword, the swordsman can track you.
Yeah.
He can follow you, he can see, you're moving, right? You're moving, oh, he's going to hit you there, now you're over there, so he's not, but by moving towards the attack, you close the gap, and when you close the gap, you take away some of the impact of it and have an opportunity to blend with it, have an opportunity to actually unify with that force. There's many movements, like one of the ones with the woman and you in the film clip. She has her hands like this, where your attack has been expressed in a new way,
right,
through the open hands. And in that moment, having been in that experience, your center and her center are the same one.
Exactly.
You know, your heart and her heart, your center of gravity and her center, your general movement direction and dynamic has been captured here in these open hands. And then it's a small movement for her to move and take you off center.
Yeah.
Then it's a small movement. But if she was to run away from you or fight against you, being bigger and stronger, you would eventually catch up and dominate in that situation. But by blending with a stronger force, you're able to actually move into that force, capture the center of that force, and absorb it, having it be one, if you will, with your own, having your own be in the center. That's what we're talking about, being in the eye of the storm, is being able to move into the eye of the storm where it may be wild and crazy all around, but in that point you are actually holding the center of what's happening, and then you have a choice in your life, a conscious, aware choice to either do damage or to let this storm blow over. Let this storm find its full expression without harming itself or you or anyone else. A lot of martial arts training, you'll see how is it that you'll be trained to how to dominate your opponent, how to break your opponent, how to harm your opponent, disable them in some way so that they either never live again or never walk again or in some way permanently damaged or fractured in some way. That is not the spirit of Aikido. It's not the spirit of Iaido as well. Well, the spirit of Iaido is rather resolute, and it's based on a code of honor between the samurai warriors that lived by a code in which once the sword leaves the scabbard, someone is leaving the earth. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, if this sword leaves the scabbard, then somebody's got to go.
Yeah.
And so they were very respectful and did not draw their sword unless they were prepared to die,
right,
or take a life. And so we talked about this morning, how much of the battle that would go down between samurais was just in the eyes, just in the energy, just in the understanding, just in the acceptance of an energetic exchange between them. What was the word the Japanese word?
It's called metsuke,
the
quality of vision that you have between people. I wanted to address one of the points that you brought up about what we would call the spirit of contention that you have. When you're in conflict with somebody, physically, or in most cases, for most of us, interpersonally, you have a sense of self and other.
Yes.
And in Aikido, you actually can feel physically. The founder of the art, Ueshiba was his family name, said that the only true enemy is the spirit of contention in our own heart.
Yes.
And physically what we do in Aikido is we drop a sense of other in the attacking body coming towards us. We really use the momentum and spirit, the ferocity. We join into that ferocity, and we include it, and we recognize that we are capable of that, that anger, that rage is in our hearts too. And it's a completely different feeling than, you know, you do this, I do that, you do this, I do that. And rather than technical, it becomes compassionate. You still have an agenda to survive, of course, you have to.
Yes, you have to have that.
But at the same time, it's not like, oh, that's you, you're like that, and I'm me.
Yeah.
And physically, when you accept, there's a way that your body organizes things. Like you can feel the difference physically in your body.
Yes.
And as you pointed out, instead of this sort of feeling, in the Aikido and the Iaido world, the posture is actually quite proud, almost like a matador. You hold yourself very open.
Open.
And with open hands. And receptive.
Yeah, there's not the closed fist thing that we'll find in a lot of other martial arts that we both practiced. It is an open-handed stance and an open-hearted stance that is actually inviting the attack. It's literally inviting the attack. It's like, whatever you've got, bring it. Yeah. You know, but not in a challenging way or an arrogant way. Yeah. But just like, I'm open to whatever you're coming up with here. Often the attacker will find themselves literally, when I've been on the attacking end of attacking someone like yourself, you know, there's literally a feeling of falling into a series of movements that are so well laid out, coordinated, and executed. It's like going for a ride. Yeah. It's like going for a ride. So even though one may be attacking seriously, they find themselves absorbed into a vortex of a different kind of energy. Yeah. And there was something else that you said about that I felt was very applicable. Giving up the idea of self and other is especially difficult or challenging when somebody is like coming at you or attacking you, coming after you or attacking you or making aggressive movements for you. To be able to give up defending yourself, to be able to give up to make something happen and allow something to get expressed that wants to be expressed. And taking the point of view that I'm here, I can hear whatever, I can deal with whatever you're coming at me with, and I will not allow you to hurt me, yourself, or anyone else. That's just not going to happen in my space. I'm just not open to that. Yeah. I'm not open to being harmed or letting anyone harm, and I'm not going to harm you too. Right. One of my teachers, Terry Dobson, who we've both talked about recently, is I used to do Aikido demonstrations with him for crowds, and I remember once somebody standing up and saying, "Yeah, well, all that's great, but is it any good for self-defense?" And I'll always remember his answer. He said, "Well, your question is making quite a few assumptions." He said, "First of all, it assumes that there is a self. And if there was one, that you could defend it." Yes. It's also assuming that it needs defending. So is it a self-defense? First you have to answer those other questions. Yeah. You know, who could attack the self? Right. Whatever that is. Does it really need defending? It's really coming from that there's something much bigger that includes you and I. And this is something that's happening inside of that. Is there something that I'm willing to give my life for? Is there something that I'm willing to give up my life for that's happening here right now? I don't think so. Yeah. Most of the time, the answer to that is no. So often the most effective Aikido, as we were talking about, is simply going to the other side of the street. You don't have to be there when the attack comes. Another thing that Terry would always teach us is if you have to move your body to defend yourself, you're late. Something's been coming at you for a while. You've been unaware of it, and it's gotten to the point where now there's a physical impact coming. Yeah. You know? And part of what I've been teaching people is listen to the omens. There are omens all around, all the time. The world is telling you something. Life is telling you something. The universe is always speaking to you, and it speaks to you through feelings, images, thoughts, emotions. So we get an idea, we get a feeling about something, and most of us have been trained from very early life to ignore that and listen to something else. Listen to some other agenda, some other parameter that actually is outside of ourselves. And I've been teaching people more and more just to listen to your, we refer to it as your gut feeling because it kind of happens in your solar plexus somewhere. That you begin to get a feeling or of uncomfortableness about something. doesn't feel quite right, you know, and I call those little red flags also, you know, if like little warning signs. Hello, something's coming up, something's coming up. If you listen to those and actually train yourself to turn up the volume in your relationships, you know, every time somebody comes to me and says, my husband suddenly left me one day without warning, and I always say, no, that's not true. There were lots of warnings. There have been warnings for years. Maybe even before you ever married the guy, there were warnings. You knew all along, and you married him anyway. That's usually the truth. And it's just very rare. Same thing for men. You know, my wife, one day I came home, the furniture was gone and she had left. And I said, well, how long has she been telling you about that she was going to do that? Usually it's like 2 years. 2 years she's been telling me, what is it that you're doing that finally drove her away? Because women don't just get up and leave for no good reason. You know, especially once they're married and bought some real estate and they're all settled in, they don't get up and leave for no good reason. So many times we're hearing the warnings. Now the guy's got to get a lawyer. He's got to like buy a new furniture. I mean, in the physical world, there's consequences if you don't listen to the signals that are coming across, the energy, and another word for energy is ki or chi. You know, thus the word in Aikido, the word ki means energy, life force, breath, and Aikido, the word I means union or harmony.
Harmony, love sometimes.
Love, right? The word I means to love or harmony with life force, the life force. So Aikido literally means, I would say, my interpretation, I want to hear yours, is union or harmony with the life force.
Right.
And then the word do is on the end of many martial arts, simply means way or path of. The path or way of harmonious unification is another way to say it. How would you, does that fit your understanding of?
I think in talking about ki, I mean, it's really easy to get esoteric about it. And I try and find relevance for it in daily life. And I think the most useful one for me is life force or vitality even. It's a sense, I think one of the punchlines of martial arts is to cultivate a lively life force and to extinguish dormancy. You want to have a sense of just becoming more alive, more awake. That doesn't mean more comfortable. It means more awake, more open to whatever the universe is serving up for dinner that day. I wanted to touch on, Gregory, one of the things you brought up about noticing those red flags, because so much of what we do can only, in this work, can only be found when you cultivate some sense of quiet. I just happened to be in your offices earlier today, and I saw on Dr. Azita's wall a sign, and I may not remember it exactly, but it said, cherish the quiet times, for God whispers and the world is loud. And essentially what we're doing, and we encourage people in this tradition to find some sort of regular quiet time in their life, some way of cultivating stillness. Because it's a madhouse that we live in. It is so frenetic that very rarely do we actually acknowledge the hidden wisdom that's coming up from our soul, from our belly. You know? And in the samurai tradition, they actually consider the seat of consciousness in the hara, in the center of the body. And we have that expression in English, and I'm sure in other languages, the gut feeling.
The gut feeling.
So in a sense, Aikido is about settling into yourself, and through settling into yourself physically and quietly, you settle into all living things, into the rest of the flow of life. So the Do, which is the same character as Tao in Chinese, is really embracing and entering in and joining the stream, the flow of life. That's what it's about, really.
Very well said.
And it extends into applications of combat, too. If you're really centered into yourself, then any attack coming on you just turns you. You don't react to it. You just turn upon your axis because you're aligned between earth and heaven. And it would be like pushing on a turnstile. You push on one side, it's just going to snap back. Ideally, in our communication, it's the same way. When someone pushes on you like this, you have a sense of going, wow, that's a strong feeling. Let's get at that. Let's see what that's about. Maybe we can resolve this. As opposed to, well, you're more like, you know,
trying to match their energy, right? You go trying to match that energy, it just becomes a confrontation. And the strongest, most fierce, most ruthless will eventually dominate. Ultimately. You know, in that case. And I'm thinking about what's happening in the world today, you know, and especially in the Middle East, you know, it's and it has been this way throughout history, that whoever's willing to be the most ruthless, the most dominant, the most brutal, is the one that usually ends up surviving and having the territory.
Yes.
Even here in the United States, this entire country, belonged to a peaceful nation, and the ones willing to be the most ruthless and brutal ended up dominating and taking the territory.
Right.
Now, nobody likes to look at that or think about that, but regardless of where you're living in the world right now and what nation you're watching from, I propose to you that your people, whoever they are, they're there because they were willing to be more ruthless and to dominate, to take out some other people. I believe that human consciousness has evolved to a point, and if you're watching this show, it's because you've evolved to a point that, because you would have changed the channel already, if not. You've evolved to the point that no longer works for you. And I believe that we've evolved to the point a long time ago, about 20 years ago, as human beings, where that no longer works, because we're now capable of turning this planet into powder, the entire place. We have more than enough megatons of atomic weapons to actually completely destroy the Earth 4 times over. And so it no longer works to use force in this time in humanity. And I believe that if you are alive and well and born in this time, and if you're watching this show, especially if you're a person that's calling on the line right now, that it is because your mind, your soul, your heart is developed to a level of evolution in which you've come to realize that you can no longer match force with force, that it behooves you for your own survival and for your own evolution to begin to blend with, understand, comprehend, and realize that that same ferocity is a part of your heart, and to begin to heal that now for all humankind. I don't think this is the end of the world. I think it's the beginning of real human beings. I think that the conflicts that are arriving in our lifetime, in your lifetime, are because you and I and all of us are ready to go to the next stage of evolution, the next stage of awareness and consciousness, where we actually can practice what we're talking about here today, Aikido. Not because everybody's going to go get a gi and practice the martial art called Aikido, but that it's time, that the way has shown us that you can no longer match force with force, and there's something else that wants to happen here. There's something that wants to happen as a species, as a race, but there's something even larger than that wants to happen universally, and it is happening through you, through me, and that's why you're watching this show, and that's why I have a master of Aikido here with me to talk about it today. We are talking today with Daniel Kempling Sensei. He's a master of Aikido and teaches Iaido. He is also the founder of Mindful Movement Training. Do you have a website, mindfulmovementtrainings.com or something?
Funny you should ask. Yeah. I do. The website is mindfulmovement.org. mindfulmovement.org. And if you're interested in some of what we've been talking about today about cultivating a greater sense of settling into yourself, then you can find some of our products, our trainings, and my DVDs that I've created to help you with that available on the site. And you can see trailers about them so you can have a more clear idea of what it is that we do. Yes, thanks.
I met Daniel Sensei at a camp where he was teaching, and I invited him to come to Los Angeles and participate with me in a workshop that I'm teaching this coming weekend. Every kind of religion and age and race of people in this workshop. I'm very pleased with this sort of eclectic mix of men, but what I can tell you is that it'll be an honor to be in the presence of these men, and each man has something to learn from him, and every man, if you're watching, has something to teach to other men. So imagine having the opportunity to get in touch with and be thoroughly grounded in your own honor, in your own integrity, and to master the technology of actually being able to access that at will. And honor and integrity and mastery is not a place to get to. It's not some place that is like a goal out there in the future. It is a place that we come from. It is a place of being, or a ground of being, with which we handle whatever life throws at you. You don't have any choice about what life is going to throw at you. You never know what's going to happen every time you step outside your front door. There may be a certain amount of predictability in your home if you've mastered that, and most people haven't even mastered what's going on in their own body, what's going on in their own mind, and what's going on in their own spirit. And then they try to master what's going on in their relationships inside their home, and there's no hope of ever doing that. And then they try to master their career, and then they try to master, life itself. And there's just, not a snowball's chance in hell, if you will, of ever doing that if you've not mastered certain very simple and ultimately easy to do techniques for being able to stay centered, focused, and calm in the face of all circumstances at all times. Does that mean that you will leave the workshop and you'll never have a conflict again for the rest of your life? No, on the contrary. You will continue to have all of the conflicts that you currently have. However, your ability to deal with them effectively will be impacted permanently and for the rest of your life. So I invite you, if you have ever considered living a life of mastery where you are effective, peaceful, calm, centered, and dignified in any situation at all time, being able to handle conflict in a no kidding but masculine kind of way, then I invite you to at least find out about the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop. One of my teachers talked about, if you lived during the time of Columbus and you heard that they were building a ship that was going to cross the ocean to go to another world, I would hope that if you lived in that town, you would at least go down and look at the boat, that you would at least go meet the crew and look at the boat and find out who is going to be exploring a whole other world. And I'm here to tell you that this workshop is something that's been in the works in my own life for about 40 years. I left home when I was 14 years old. I've been living around the world and throughout the world studying. I've dedicated my entire life to studying and practicing different technologies ever since then. I'm 57 years old, in case you're doing the math. Save yourself the arithmetic, because if you do the math, you won't hear my story. If you're doing the math, I'm 57 years old, and for about 40 years, I've been collecting the elements that I'm putting into the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop, and Daniel here is going to be teaching that with me, teaching a certain section of that with me, and so I'm really honored to do that. And if you haven't missed if you've missed the first part of the show, what we've been talking about is Aikido and Iaido, which is a Japanese martial art, and Iaido is the Japanese martial arts sword technology. Mm-hmm. It's a meditation form, really, right, that one practices by oneself as a form of self-perfection, self-refinement.
Yeah. They call it in Japanese, the word they use is tanren. And tanren really is the same word they use for forging swords. And it's the sense that this path is a lifetime path. If you're still breathing, you're still working on it. It's not this sort of salvation mentality. You do one experience and you're done your work. The sense is there's always more work to do. And so it is in our relationships too. We have to have a sense of meeting our relationships, especially our primary relationships. Yeah. With our family, with our wife, with our parents, those ones, well, we know what they're like kind of thing.
Yes, the ones you're eating and sleeping with and supporting and speaking to every day. If there's anyone in your life, and I'm going to include in this perspective, even the guy down at the store. If you're seeing somebody at least once a month in your life, then that person is part of the makeup, the fabric of your very life. They're a part of you. The people that you're seeing on a regular basis, even if it's just once a month you see them, then that's somebody that is a part of your world. It's a reflection of who you are. And it behooves us to have the most loving and empowering possible relationship with every human being if you're meeting them on a day-to-day. So it goes without saying that the people that are in your home, the people that share your bloodline, the people that are like, if anything happened to them, your own life would be profoundly affected. Right. Those are the people that you really want to make sure that their life experience is left with a legacy of love and empowerment and honor and dignity. It's one thing to live an honorable life for yourself. I think you owe it to yourself. Right. I think we all owe it to ourselves to live a life of honor and dignity for the privilege that it is to have a body. To have a life, to have friends, to, most of us, and I, again, if you're sitting someplace watching this show, you have a house, you have a television, You probably have a car and a cell phone and a computer and a whole bunch of stuff, which puts you in about the top 2 to 3% of the population of the world.
Well, you know,
very few people have that by comparison. And so to have that privilege and to live it honorably and with dignity and to make the most of it and to share it with people in your life leaves a legacy for future generations. Consider the alternative. What else could you leave if it was not honorable with integrity?
Right. You chose the word for your workshop, mastery. You know, honor, integrity, and mastery. And I was interested in that choice of word because for many people, mastery is a sense of, well, you arrive someplace and then you are, I would like to think more that mastery is choosing every moment that you can consciously recognize as an opportunity for putting your whole self into awareness and service, compassion. When you said the man at the store, you know, you have the chance at the checkout, the person even that's doing the squeegee on the window that you'd rather not be there.
Right.
Every person that you encounter, every being, even your relationship with the trash that you don't pick up that you thought you really should have, moment that we have is an opportunity for mastery. So mastery isn't like, oh, I have arrived now, and you end up being, in a false sense, a pompous ass.
Yes.
But really, mastery is a chance to push yourself into every moment. John D. Rockefeller said, the secret to success is to do the common things uncommonly well. And I think that that's a part of what we're looking at here.
Yes.
That includes our relationship, obviously, but I think for men especially, our primary drive is often towards our work life, our careers, how we express ourselves professionally, how we're recognized by other men.
Yeah, and so much of our daily life in this generation and just this time, in the last 40 years now, in the 60s, up until about the late 50s and early 60s, having a sense of honor and dignity and stuff was recommended. It was accepted as being like the right way to be by most Western civilizations, and our fathers taught us, you know, you just don't do that. You know, this is the right thing to do, and we didn't question that. And then in the 60s, something enormous happened. It became popular, my generation, it became the thing of the day to be the rule breakers. So rule breaking became what was the way to be. Shortcuts, dishonor, those kind of things became the modality of the day. And so if you're under the age of 40, you've been raised in a world in which being dishonorable, taking the short way out, is actually the recommended, most popular modality of being. And so we're actually swimming against the sort of swimming against the current here, yet the traditions of the ages and the natural laws of the universe are on our side here. When you're swimming in the direction of honor and integrity, you've actually got the universe who's raising up underneath the soles of your feet to support you and say yes. And it gives you the strength to stand strong even though when the current is going the other direction, and to forge a path. As we were talking about Aikido, Budo, it means to forge, like to forge a path, to actually forge a path in a direction that is for your ultimate fulfillment. Now they're giving me signals that we're out of time. It was a short show today. We started a little bit late. I want to thank you once again for being here. It's a privilege, Gregory, and an honor, and I'm really happy to have you with me on my workshop. I'm just like super. I wish I could think of a more dignified word at the moment, but that was the one, super, that came up. And we're having a lot of fun together. I will be back here again next week on Love Talk. Thank you for joining me.
The Embrace Growth app is finally here. You start by signing in, just as you would online, and from there, you'll see all of your account settings. Once in the app, you'll have access to events and all of Embrace Growth's original content. Registering for workshops and seminars is easier than ever, and tools for managing your profile and options are built right in. Schedule private sessions and connect with the global Embrace Growth community. Download it today on the App Store.
برای خارق‌العاده زندگی کردن فرصت اندک است. زندگی را زنده زندگی کنید. سمینار از زندمانی تا زندگانی توسط خانم دکتر آزیتا سایان. تورنتو 18 سپتامبر، ونکوور 30 سپتامبر، لندن 7 اکتبر، روتردام 9 اکتبر، کلن 17 اکتبر. 310 460 2600 embracegrowth.com. یک مرد منحصر به فرد، مسلط، متمرکز، قابل اعتماد و رضایتمند باشید. کارگاه شرافت، عزت کلام و مهارت به رهبری دکتر آزیتا سایان. تورنتو 21 تا 23 سپتامبر، همبورگ 19 تا 21 اکتبر و لس آنجلس 2 تا 4 نوامبر. 310 460 2600. در کارگاه‌های آموزشی بانوان به رهبری دکتر آزیتا سایان با دستیابی به اهمیت و ارزش واقعی خود، قدرت زنانگی و آرامش خود را بازیابید. ایروان ارمنستان 7 تا 9 فوریه، لس آنجلس 22 تا 24 فوریه، تورنتو 15 تا 17 مارچ و همبورگ 26 تا 28 آپریل. 310 460 2600.